able to see these 3 or 4 placements in your horoscope, then there is a very high tendency that either you will be attracted to or get into a relationship with, even on the sly, with somebody who could be much younger to you or maybe much older to you also. Hello, Namaskar and Adab to all my friends from your friend astrologer and guide Irfan, once more with you from your very own channel, Astro Assurance. A few days back I made a video on how do we get into relationships, and in the relationships how can we identify what is the kind of person we may get into, and I had brought in a lot of factors in terms of what the person's attitude may be, whether the person may be hardworking or not, whether the person is somebody who is a procrastinating person or not, and looks, financial situation and so forth. However, I had missed one aspect, which is the age aspect of the partners. And how do we identify the age factor, whether somebody has a chance of getting into a relationship with a much older man or much younger man or a much older woman or a much younger woman, depending on whether you are man or woman or anything nowadays goes. So I had missed out on one gentleman who usually follows my videos and he watches most of my videos. He got in touch with me and he said, sir, age. Not in the same tone, but almost in the same manner, that why did I miss out on the age? Because age is very important, especially in today's time. So I want to make this a more detailed video about how do you identify the age factor. And if you are able to see these 3 or 4 placements in your horoscope, then there is a very high tendency that either you will be attracted to or get into a relationship with, even on the sly, with somebody who could be much younger to you or maybe much older to you also. So let's jump into and find what are the factors in the horoscope which tell us whether there is a possibility that this may happen. Firstly, these 4 planets are very, very important to look at unusual relationships, especially connected to higher age or much lower age as well. These 4 planets or planetary factors are Saturn, Venus, Moon and Rahu. Why these 4? Because Moon is our attachment, what we get emotionally attached, what we get attracted to also. Especially looking at how we can get emotional succor from them, emotional nourishment from them, the caring attitude also. Maybe if you are looking for a mother or father in somebody also, then too Moon becomes a factor. Or if you have a very weak Moon, we are looking at some emotional anchor somewhere, and if you find some emotional anchor, sometimes even in somebody who is either much older than us or much younger than us, then too also we have a tendency, we have a potential to try and get attached to that person, to get that emotional succor, to get that emotional nourishment. So Moon becomes very important. And so in any horoscope, if Moon is very afflicted, very weak, or attached to either Saturn or Rahu, or even with Venus, and to some extent even with Mars, then there is a high chance that such a person may get into unusual relationship with people because of the attachment, or looking at emotional succor, emotional nourishment, or even looking for a mother or father in the other person. Second is Venus. If Venus is strongly afflicted, even debilitated in your house, then too you may get attracted to or even try attachment with those people who may be very unusual from an intimacy factor, from a romance factor. Venus is the romance, Venus is the intimacy, Venus is the sexual attraction, not the emotional attraction which Moon represents. Venus is the sexual attraction, the intimacy, the power of romance, which brings 2 people together. So if Venus is strongly afflicted or Venus is strongly aspected by malefics, then too a person may be attracted by people, especially when it is strongly afflicted by either Saturn or by Rahu or by Mars. Then get connected with those people where the relationship may be unusual from an age factor as well. Thirdly, if Rahu gets into the mix, then Rahu is a planet of extremely unusual taste. It can get you attracted to the same gender. Maybe you may even be bisexual sometimes. Sometimes you may even be attracted to people who are much older than you because you find them to be more unusual. Sometimes you are also more rebellious towards society. So you don't mind getting attached to, or being with people who are much older than you. In fact, you may find a certain degree of excitement in it and unusual factors also in it. And you sometimes think you are unusual yourself. And then the very important factor of Saturn. Saturn is the planet of old age. Saturn is the planet of seniority. So if Saturn gets into the mix, either when Saturn is placed in the Lagna, placed in the 7th house, placed in the 4th house, then there is a high chance that such a person may find anchor with a person who may be older. So usually the 1st house, the Lagna, from where Saturn aspects the 7th house, the 4th house of domestic life, where you are establishing a domestic home with somebody, these become very important factors. But if you are sexually attracted to somebody and the relationship may not survive beyond a few years, then the factors which get involved may be the Kama Bhavas, which is the 3rd house, the 11th house and the 7th house. Because here what happens, if Saturn gets into either of the 3 Kama Bhavas and either aspects the Lagna Lord or the 7th Lord without being either in the family houses, which is the 2nd house or the 4th house, then the tendency to get attracted to somebody who may be much senior in your age may be high, especially if Saturn is aspecting your 7th Lord and placed in any of these Kama Bhava, the 3rd house, the 11th house or the 7th house. And to an extent, even if Saturn is in the 5th house, then too you may be attracted to somebody who is much senior than you in age also. But here, Saturn just aspecting the 7th Lord or even the Lagna Lord is not enough. You should also have one more factor out of the other 3, which is Venus and Rahu or Moon, who also get involved in the mix. So for example, if you have a strongly debilitated or afflicted Venus and then Saturn is in any of these Kama Bhavas and aspecting the 7th Lord or the Lagna Lord, then there is a possibility that this person may get involved, attracted to or in a relationship with somebody who may be much more senior. Saturn in the 7th house is a very strong feature because Saturn is in the 7th house and aspecting your 4th house of domestic life. And usually with such people, you either marry late in life or you marry after 2 or 3 failed relationships with others who may be even be your age, or you marry after one breakup, even a divorce or a separation, and then you tend to get married with somebody who may be older than you because you feel that you have lived your life with young people and you feel that there is no extra attraction to being with young people except the age, and you don't mind being with somebody who's more senior, who's much more mature, because you're looking at for stability. This usually will happen with people who are in their 30s or late 30s, because then they have been already with 2 or 3 relations and they have found that usually age is not such a big factor, and sometimes age could also be counterproductive. Where you're trying to find somebody of the similar age, it could also be counterproductive. You may have had your fair share of failed relations and you want to move on into a more stable relationship, and sometimes we feel that people who are more mature, who may be more mature than us because of the age, because of the experience also, may be an ideal match for us when we are looking for that emotional anchor and the long-term stability. Then some combinations may also give us the tendency. For example, Mars and Venus, which gives us very high attraction also, sometimes the sexual aggression also. So if we find that Saturn is also getting into the mix, when Mars and Venus are together, especially Mars and Venus get into any of the Kama Bhavas or the 4th or the 7th house, and even to an extent in the 5th house, then such a person may be attracted to unusual relationship. And if Rahu or Saturn get into the mix, place either any of these houses or aspecting them, or placed in the 7th house or placed with the 7th Lord or aspecting the 7th Lord, in any of these combinations, the attraction is very high. But usually what happens when Mars and Venus get involved in the mix, or Rahu or Venus get involved in the mix, or Saturn and Moon get involved in the mix, then the relationship may not survive beyond a few years. Either you tire out of the relationship, or the person who is much younger than you or much older than you may tire out of the relationship. And then one fine day, maybe you also have a lot of pressure socially and the break happens. Now if Saturn is responsible for a more senior person, for a more mature person, maybe a more experienced person, what may give you a much younger person. One thing is that in the other person's horoscope, Saturn should be involved. Especially if you are the much older person and you have to be involved with the younger person, then the younger person should have a strong Saturn getting involved in any of these houses, especially the second or the fourth or the seventh or the Kama Bhavas or the fifth house. And you should have somewhere in the mix Mercury and Rahu involved, either in the Lagna or the second house or the fourth house, the seventh house, the Kama Bhavas or the fifth house. Why Mercury and Rahu? Mercury is the planet of youth and Rahu is the planet of unusual relationship. So if Rahu and Mercury get into the mix, then you may get involved with somebody who is much younger than you. And the age difference can be anywhere between 5 to 7 to 10 years and as much as even 15 to 20 years. Because Rahu is unusual relationship, Mercury is youth. And if Rahu gets involved with Mercury and Venus is also in the mix, either place in the fourth house or the Kama Bhavas or the seventh house or the second house of family, then there is a higher tendency that not only will you be having a romance with somebody who may be much younger than you, but the relationship may also survive a longer period of time. And if you have at least 3 of them in the mix, that is, say for example, a highly afflicted Venus, Moon is also highly afflicted or even debilitated, Rahu involved in the fourth house or the seventh house or the second house or even the fifth house of romance, Saturn involved either in the seventh house or afflicting the Moon or afflicting Venus or placed in the fourth or the seventh house, then it becomes a very high chance that whoever you end up in a long-term stable relationship will be much older than you, much experienced than you, much mature than you. Sometimes it is the zodiac's way of also telling you that you need such a partner because you yourself are looking for that emotional nourishment, you're looking for the emotional anchor. And if the zodiac sometimes feels you need that emotional anchor, then the zodiac will strongly give you that tendency both in your D1 chart and your D9 chart, the Navans chart. And so if you have a mix of these 4 planets, Saturn, Rahu, Venus or Moon, for an older relationship, whereas Mercury, Venus, Moon and Rahu in the mix for a relationship with a much younger person, and if that is also replicated to a large extent in the D9 chart or the Navansh also, then at least one relationship of yours in your life will be with somebody who may be either much older than you or much younger than you in your age. But what if you are involved with somebody who's much older but is very young at heart? There Mercury and Saturn both get into the mix. Saturn may be, for example, placed in your 4th house or the 7th house, but Mercury may be either in the 5th house of romance or in the Lagna aspecting the 7th house or even in the 11th house or the 3rd house, which are the Kama Bhavas, and then giving you the tendency of getting into a relationship with somebody who is much older but much younger at heart, more romantic at heart. So friends, look at your chart, analyze your chart strongly and see whether any of these things are getting into the mix, especially the important houses, which is the house of family, 2nd or the 4th house, the Kama Bhavas, which is the 3rd, 7th or the 11th house, the 5th house of romance, or the Lagna, which gives you the reputation of who you are, who you will be with, and what your attitude and character is in life. And if these 4 planets or 5 planets, depending on whether you're going for an older relation or younger relationship, if any of these get involved in both the Lagna chart as well as the Navans chart in any of these houses, then you have a very high chance of getting into a relationship, even stable relationship, even a long-term relationship, even culminating into a marriage in the Dasha period of that planet which is getting into an affliction. So if Saturn is getting afflicted, so during the Dasha or Antardasha of Saturn, there is high chance that you get into a relationship with such a person. Or if the Dasha or Antardasha of Rahu is involved, Rahu is getting into the mix in the affliction or getting connected with Venus or getting connected with Moon, then during the Rahu Dasha or Antardasha, then too the relationship may start. And if the Dasha is long, such as Rahu's or Saturn's involved, then the relationship could not only be long term but could even be sustaining. And it may also be in a long term socially accepted relationship which you also acknowledge in society. So friends, look into your D1 chart, your D9 chart, the Navhan chart, understand your placements well and see whether you have a tendency of getting into a relationship either with a very young person or very old person, whether it's going to be for a short duration of time, either through just sexual attraction or actually looking for a strong emotional anchor and a strong long-term stable relationship. So friends, like this video, share this video, and if you're looking for a personal consultation from me, please reach out to me at the links given below. Until some other time with some other video, this is your friend astrologer and guide Irfan signing off. Ciao.